Bum 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 ba-dum bum 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 ba-da-da-dum bum ba-da da da dum bum 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 ba-dum bum 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 ba-da-da-dum bum ba-da da da dum. Hello, mighties. Hello, my mighties. Monica, I love Monday night with you too, and all the mighties. Oh, we've got Bernadette from Ireland. So nice to have you across the pond. Welcome, Western Colorado. That's Lida. And Wisconsin is Shelly, and Madison is Terry. Wisconsin is Terry. It's fabulous. Tennessee, more Wisconsin. We got a lot of Wisconsin, 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 Sonians. San Diego. Kate's from San Diego and Carmen from Kansas City. It is just great to see everyone. And those are my mighties. And let's see everyone in Facebook. Hi, Elaine. And Connecticut. And Tiffany says she's watching from Facebook and Mighty. Hi from Maryland, says Elvira. And Guilford, is it Guilford? Guilford? I can't read that because it's moving up. Connecticut. Good evening from more. Somebody else from Connecticut, Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, la, 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 la. From North Carolina, singing. Hi, Brian. Oh, it's great. It's wonderful to see you all. Tampa. Hello, Florida. Guilford. Oh, is that what it is? Guilford. My husband's yelling out, Guilford, because he's from Connecticut. Laura from Ohio and Brenda from North Carolina, Vienna, Virginia, Minnesota. So that's Polly. Hi, hi, hi. Great. Wonderful to see everyone. So, hi. How are you? You're all looking good, huh? You're always looking really great. Love to see all of y'all from Texas. That's Gayla. Grand Rapids and more Texas and Minnesota. And I'm back in Florida. And as much as I loved being with my family in New York, it is good to be back in. There's something good about Florida. There really is. Shall I expound on that? For those of you who know what I'm talking about, it's the weather. Well, let's just say the climate. Okay, let's just call it the climate. The political climate here is much more comfy than it is in crazy New York. Holy cow. So, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Joette Calabrese, and I'm here every Monday night at 8 o'clock Eastern Time to teach you how to use homeopathy. I've been a teacher for many years, 35 years all told, I think, something like 34, 35 years. I've been teaching, I've taught to mothers in their homes. There was one time in my life, about a 5-year, maybe 8-year stretch, something like that, when we were raising our kids, and all day long I would homeschool and I would study cases, and I was studying my practice. And on Monday night, I went to one person's home in Black Rock, which is a part of Buffalo. And then Tuesday night, I'd go to another group of people in their home on the west side of Buffalo. And then on Wednesday night, I would go to another group, teach those people in Orchard Park. And then Thursday night, I would go to another group in North Buffalo. And then Friday night, I mean, literally, it was 5 days, 5 nights. Every single night, I had a group of we ran anywhere between 10 and 40 people in each of the groups. Many of them were homeschoolers. Many of them were Christian and Catholic homeschoolers, and many of them were not. Some of them were grandparents, but they were mostly moms who, let's put it this way, knew enough to think outside of the box. And I find that those people who think outside of the box in one venue think outside of the box in another venue. Then they start rethinking, if if I'm not satisfied with the public education in my area, what else am I not satisfied? Well, I guess I don't trust the food so much. Maybe I should be making my own food from scratch. Maybe I should be thinking differently about medicine. Maybe I should be thinking differently. So it keeps evolving. And we can't help but start connecting then and meeting with other people who have at least unifying threads with us, which is a beautiful thing. So let's go back further. Many years ago, when I was in my early 30s, I worked for an independent television station. It was called WUTV outside of Buffalo, New York, and it was great fun. Loved that job. And the owner of that television station was local. He was a local man, and everyone knew him. And he had a very good reputation. And one of the reasons he had a good reputation was because his name was Herman Pease. I liked him very much. He had a good reputation because at least what I saw was that he was integritous. And then I moved up. I moved from this little independent television station as an account executive. I sold airtime. I moved up to NBC. And that was an NBC affiliate owned by Taft Broadcasting. And then things changed. I noticed that there was a difference. It was no longer a responsible local owner who was part of the community, who had integrity as to what kind of products he sold and what kind of programs he put up. And it was just different. It was a national organization. And one of the things that I noticed was, and I've told this story many times, was that I won't go into the details of this story. I have a few of them actually. Was that as a salesperson in sales and marketing, as an account executive, we would bring in the accounts, or we were given an account of our accounts. And in order, when I first started that job, I negotiated having a certain number of accounts. And that's how we worked it out, so that when I started, I could start right off into selling immediately. And so what I saw was there were a lot of good people there. So please don't get me wrong. There were a lot of good people. But what I saw was that we were owned. Our news, our advertising was owned by industry. Big industry, not the little car dealership that was local, not the little chain of local hair salons. Oh, nay. We were owned by McDonald's and Pepsi-Cola and the oil companies. And what I mean by that is not so much that they got what they wanted on the advertising side, on the airtime, which they got anyway. But what was really important is that they wanted their narrative in our news. So that was back in the early 80s, when things were not nearly like they are today. And so what has happened now is that the media is really just the marketing arm. Funny that I should use that word, huh? The marketing arm of big business and big government. When I left that job, that I say again, I enjoyed it. I really liked it. It was fun. I got to meet a lot of interesting people. It was an exciting job. But when I left, it became very clear to me that it was not a good pastime to be seated in front of the screen, because it was clear to me that it was, at that time, I didn't think of it as propaganda. I thought of it as more skewed. And maybe that's all it was at that time. Now it's different. But at the time when I left that job, I bought a bumper sticker that I found. I don't know where it was, that read, "Kill your television." And I actually had it on the back of my car. I don't know that people understood exactly what I meant by that. But shortly after, I was pregnant when I left. And my husband and I were starting our family, and we decided no television in the household. We just didn't own one. Now, we had a box with a screen, but it wasn't hooked up. We had to be hooked up somehow. We didn't have cable. And then when we moved to the country, you couldn't get the channels the way you would normally. So you had to have a special antenna and all kinds of things. And we never did that. So we just had a plain box that you could put videos into. So, and that's where I'm going into tonight, a remedy that was very useful for my family. So we're going into my materia medica, and it will all relate to the story. Here's my materia medica. Should you be interested, it's something you can purchase if you decide. If not, then you can certainly get materia medicas online. And we are going to be talking about a remedy that I absolutely love. I don't even have to think about this remedy. It is so important. It was so important to me at one point in my life that it has become one of my very favorites. And I'm going to pronounce it heavily with an accent, or with a heavy accent, I should say, so that it helps you remember it. It's called Stramonium. And I'm saying it like that for fun, because when I do that, you will remember it better. Stramonium. 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 It's thorn apple. It is one of our best medicines, my friends. And I'm going to tell you the extreme of it, and then I'm going to tell you how that story I started out telling you relates to it. The medicine this medicine is a medicine for when someone has kind of a shock to the system, a neurological response, or there was a neurological event, like someone was witnessed an atrocity, someone who was in a war and saw and witnessed or experienced atrocities. It's for someone with a tender young heart that sees something scary too. So a child. It is a medicine for someone who's had a frightening event in their life. Maybe they got stuck in an elevator. Maybe someone, they were jumped and they were accosted. Maybe they were someone who was who had such a neurological event that they are trying to work it out in their brain, in their mind, without cognitively knowing this. But they find themselves being angry almost as a response, not almost, as a response, as a compensation for the fright that came into them. In came the fright, shock to the system. The presentation is now anger. Now, that's more of an extreme situation. I'm going to tell you a story about my son when he was little. As I said, we did not own a television. Instead, I used to get videos from the library. And I got a video called Swiss Family Robinson. And I'm talking about the version from 1957 or 1959. Really seemingly an innocuous production. So we rented that or borrowed it from the library, and my son loved it. He was about, it's hard to remember. I want to say he was about 5 or 6, something like that. And he loved this movie, but he was fixated on the scene where the pirates were going to go kill the Swiss Family Robinson family. I think he was taken by it because he couldn't imagine why anyone would want to hurt a family. There they were. And I think he related to that family. I think it felt like our family to him because we lived out in the country and we used to make a lot of things from scratch and had our own animals and all. And I think he related to that. So when he watched it, we had it for about a week. When he watched it, he would move it forward or back and find that scene and watch it over and over. And I could see that there was something going on with this, that it was a little bit too heavy for him. I would never have thought that because it wasn't what I'd call a violent movie. There was never any real violence. And so, shortly after watching this movie several times and watching that same scene over and over again, I made my hair flip up. I look like Woody Woodpecker. I noticed a change in him. He was no longer, anybody would have noticed this change. He was no longer able to stay asleep. He would go to sleep just fine, and then he would wake up in a kind of a trance, and he was in a night terror. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen a night terror in a child, but it's really not very pleasant to see. It's really hard for the whole family even, but particularly for the child who's suffering. He would be screaming. We'd have to turn the light on. You could see he really couldn't see us. He was seeing something else. He was in half a dream state and half an awake state. He knew we were there. He could hear our voices, and he had to stare into the light. So I'd put the lamp on, and he would stare at it, and we would talk to him and try to calm him down. And it was quite frightening. And it was night after night after night. And during the day, I noticed something else that was different. He was playing with his Lego guys in a way that was more violent. He was not a violent child. He was not violent with his brothers or animals. He loved animals. But with his Lego guys, he was reenacting what he thought, I think, what he thought the pirates were going to do to the Swiss Family Robinson family. And so there was more, instead of his Lego guys building during the day, his Lego guys were going after bad guys. And they were getting their swords and getting prepared and planning the event and planning the attack. So this was when I was still working I was just starting my practice as a classical homeopath. And I was, how do I say this? Academically strangled, academically paralyzed. Because I had been taught by teachers, and I took them literally, that you have to be very, very careful which remedy you choose and what potency. And if it's wrong, you could cause trouble. You could suppress it. It could cause this. It could cause that. And you better be absolutely sure. And it's got to be the Constitution. And you can't treat on just symptoms. You've got to know what the Constitution is. And you've got to go in depth. And you better know what you're doing because you could cause trouble. So that paralyzation kept me from being able to make a decision for my poor suffering son, not to mention my suffering family who was hearing my son screaming. My husband couldn't sleep. He had to get up for work the next day. His older brother couldn't sleep. There was no peace in the house while this was going on. But no, I still did not choose the remedy. And I knew that it was stramonium, but I didn't know what potency. Should I use a 200? Is that too high? Should I use a 30? That's too low. Should I use a 1M? Oh, that I don't know. That's dangerous. 1Ms are dangerous. And so I remember all of these rules that I was being taught. And then what? One dose? Or one dose once a week? Or one dose every other day? Or once a month? I was academically paralyzed. And just around that time, a book came out. I'm almost positive I have it in my other office. I'm pretty sure it's Paul Herskue. It was a book titled Stramonium. And so I bought the book and I read it and I said, this is clearly stramonium. And I think in the book, he had referred to the fact that he had used stramonium in a 200 potency. And so I ventured. It was a huge leap. When I think about that, it cracks me up. Because I was so worried. I was so concerned over something that was really not that concerning, in the very least. And I gave him Stramonium 200C at the time that he had the event, one of the events. And within minutes, he fell asleep. I don't know, 10 minutes. And he was able to sleep for the whole night. The next night, he was fine. The next night after that, as I recall, he woke up again, wasn't as extreme. I gave it to him again. And so I figured out that 200C was a good potency. And I used it about every other day, as I recall. It was a long time ago, folks. This was 26 years ago. So I don't remember exactly. So I ended up using Stramonium, and it made a huge difference. So then I stopped because he was so much better. And about 2 months later, something like that, he started to get these dreams again, these night terrors. And so what did I do? I used Stramonium 200C again. So this sounds violent, doesn't it? His violent experience. It was violent for him. And it was something that was very, very difficult for him. But Stramonium does not need to be extreme in order to use it. Today, now I use this medicine in either a 6 or a 200 for sleep issues. When people have sleep issues, they can't stay asleep, they can't fall asleep, or someone who is bothered by nightmares. Because we think of that sleep and nightmares and neurological events as something that is intense. It intensifies during those times, during sleep and during those events. It intensifies and it makes for a more intense experience that the person is suffering through. So one does not need to show that there is a violent or an angry aspect on one side and then a frightful event on the other, although that is essentially what Paul Herskew was talking about in his book named Stramonium. But it's been a long time since I've read it. That was the upshot of what I gathered from it. We don't need to have the violence or the anger and the fear. But if we do, it is quite lovely. So we can also use this medicine for mothers that yell too much, that get angry too readily. Could be sepia, we know that, but it's also a great remedy for a mother who can't help herself and wants to hit her children. Now, I'm not talking about a spanking because I know I'm going to offend someone here. I just know it. But I believe in spanking, not beating, spanking. A wallop on the bottom when a child goes into the street is the way a child understands something like that. You cannot tell a child, now, honey, you shouldn't go in the street because a big bad car might come by and kill you. That doesn't work. But a whack on the bottom or 2 or 3 will get their attention. But we're not talking about that. I digress. What we're talking about is a mother who is spanking frequently, who's hitting her children, who's becoming violent. And that is a great remedy. Stramonium 200C is a great medicine for this situation. So people who are violent or people who are violent and there is a rage on one side and there is perhaps fear on the other side. And if you look into the mother's life, you might find that she had a shocking event or a fear that occurred that may have caused this compensation. God put padding on their bottoms for a good reason, says Barbara. Oh, beautiful. Yeah, I would say for both, you could use a 6 and would use Stramonium 6 twice a day for insomnia or nightmares, or a 200 twice a day. Either one. I've never used it in a 30, as I recall. Maybe I have, but I don't recall. I remember using 6s and 200s, and both of those have acted. And generally, it's twice a day, whichever one you choose, twice a day for several days until the event is over. What happens, my friends, if the event is over and then it returns? Say, I don't know, 3 months later. What happens? Let's see if I can get Bedwetting age 8. I don't understand the question. Stramonium or aconitum better for getting stuck in an elevator? That's interesting. Stramonium is very similar to aconitum in many ways. It's the reaction. Aconitum only has anxiety, whereas stramonium has terror and rage or rage. Okay. Let's just see. Treat it again. Yes, use the remedy again, says Francine. You bet CB says, take it again. If the remedy is used and it has acted and there's no longer a need for it and you stop using it, you stop until you need it again and you begin dosing again. Absolutely, Melinda. Repeat the remedy and do it in the same way. Listen, if you used a 200 last time, don't go to a 6 next time if it acted. If the 200 acted and it's good, use the 200 again. If the 600 acted, it was good, then use the 6 again. That's the way I would look at it. Don't tinker with success, my friends. Whenever you find that something works nicely, stick with it. Don't over intellectualize. That's where we get stuck in homeopathy. And that's what I'm trying to antidote. I want to antidote that academic freeze that says you do not know what to do. You don't know how to take care of this. You do not understand homeopathy well enough to be able to use this. And I say, garbage. You know how to do it. All you need to know is what the condition is, what the protocol is. If something goes awry, you stop. That's all. These are medicines that are very gentle, my friends. It will not do harm unless you're, can homeopathy do harm? Anything can do harm. But let me also say there's an added aspect of homeopathy. If you insist that this is a thyroid condition and it turns out it's not a thyroid condition at all, that it's, GERD, and you're treating it with a protocol for thyroid, and you keep taking it and taking it and taking it and using it over and over, you're going to cause a proving. Of course, it's the wrong medicine. Would be the same for anything that you did. So I don't want you to be willy-nilly about this, but I also don't want you to be paralyzed. Someplace in between with some intelligence and enough background in this, and you can do this. I trust that mothers, grandmothers, and families can do this. Okay. What potency would be best to start? Exactly the potencies I just talked about. For those that are experiencing extreme trauma over time, should I expect results after weeks, just like treating a chronic? I would call this this was not a chronic. It was rather an acute because it was new. But had I not treated this medicine, my friends, this would have been a long-term chronic problem. There's no doubt in my mind. This would have gone on for a very, very long time. So, for those who are experiencing extreme trauma over time, should I expect results after weeks? I would expect, if it's the right medicine, that there should be a change within days, within a week, 10 days, tops. And if there's no change after that, I would abandon it and rethink it. Not only rethink it, but look at the condition and see what's presenting now. Because some things may have changed. And then you use those symptoms to determine the next remedy that would be better chosen. Let's just see, which potency? I think we talked about what potency. Got it. See, these things jump all around. I'm sorry there's lots of folks here. Stuttering. Absolutely, I've had results. This is a great medicine for stuttering. I didn't read from my Materia Medica here. This is an excellent remedy for stuttering, for seizures. Let me just look here. Hallucinations, like what my son was having. Effortlessly disoriented or confused. Yep. And there can be stuttering. You bet. Especially if the stuttering is associated with some kind of a neurological event, such as something that was frightening. I've had people tell me that their children, one case in particular, a little girl opened the door on Halloween night and the person standing before her had a very frightening costume on. And it startled her. And so she, from that time forward, was terrified of being alone, and was a lot more angry with her younger sibling. And so stramonium was exactly the medicine that was needed. For a child with fear of the dark, if this fits, 6 or 200 would work in both situations, 6 or 200. I'm not splitting hairs between a child and an adult. Let's see. What does approving look like? The person starts getting the symptoms that the medicine is intended to correct. So you might see a little stutter. You might see that the person becomes more frightened. And then, we're going in the wrong direction. It's becoming more and more like the remedy. And then what do? We antidote. And how do you know how to do that? You go to Joette Calabrese Antidote, and you'll find it on my blog. I believe that the blog I've written about on antidoting is titled Stop It. Post-traumatic stress disorder. Yes, ma'am. But you want these symptoms to be those that are considered. All righty. Oh my goodness. It's already 8:31. How does this happen? For those of you who have joined my academy, thank you. We're about to start up in about a week or so. I'm very excited about this. We expected, I'm not going to give you exact numbers because I don't have them in my head. We had a 300% more people actually join in our student body than we expected. I'm blown away. And we have a student body that is like no other. I read those applications. These students are going to be the finest. I'm very excited. So if any of you are part of that, thank you for joining in. All righty, folks. Great to see you all. Love you. God bless you. No worries. No worries. We can get through these difficult times. No worries. Just be constant, study your medicines, own your medicines, and trust your medicines. And with that, I say, God bless all of you. Bye.